Fresh off the earnings we got this morning out of JPMorgan and Wells Fargo. Joining us right now to give us his take is Macrae Sykes, portfolio manager over at Gabelli Funds. Were you impressed by what you heard this morning?
Yeah, from both those companies, both on the consumer side, the credit side. Obviously, Wells Fargo, the outperformer today, indicating kind of a path to some relief from this asset cap at some point. It's in the hands of the government, but I think that's a nice catalyst that we've all been waiting for the first 7 years. So that's great.
Given some of the commentary we heard on the conference call, both from the CFO at both companies, JPMorgan and Wells Fargo, they seem pretty optimistic about the health of the consumer. When we hear from Bank of America next week and Goldman and Morgan Stanley and then, of course, the regional banks, do you think we're also going to hear a similar upbeat tone?
I do in general. I think, it depends on sort of the segments that they interact with. So we know the higher end and the middle class is doing pretty well, employment, travel, all of this. But there clearly are some struggles with the legacy inflation issues at the lower end, and we've seen that in some of the consumer numbers. But overall, I think, the feedback we got is a pretty healthy, stable customer. And then, that also includes credit in terms of card fees and payments and so on. So that's a...
When we were talking to the CFO of Wells Fargo, we were trying to kind of understand where loan growth is going to really pick up and if there's a catalyst. And it was hard for him to answer that question. I mean, it does seem like there's some stabilization, but what's going to propel that loan growth is still a question mark. What do you see which banks benefits the most?
Well, they indicated with the asset cap, removal, one place they might look to, allocate capital be wholesale funding. So, typically those are the corporates. So I think that there definitely seems to be a lot of uncertainty, not uncertainty, but just a patience ahead of the elections. And so we'll obviously get some certainty after that. And then, we'll be more into the rate cuts at the back end of the year, too. So a little lower rates, I think, will be helpful. I don't think there's expectations for a return to, we saw for the 15-year period of very low rates. So I think we're kind of in a normalization in terms of expectations around what the cost of capital will be in the next half year. And I think people will start to plan and look to grow their businesses, inventories, et cetera.
How about 45 seconds left? Top bank for you right now. Top pick.
Oh, definitely Wells Fargo. I mean, even with the pop today, I think people are going to relook at this. It's been in the penalty box for so long, so worn down by kind of this regulatory news that, for them to get back to growth and the opportunity to deploy capital and also buy back shares post the Basel, I think this is a great opportunity.
All right, Macrae, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Macrae Sykes over at Gabelli Funds joining us on that.